Have you ever noticed how silence feels heavier than rejection? Not the loud kind, not the angry kind, but the quiet shift. Messages get shorter, replies take longer, energy disappears, and suddenly, you're alone with questions. Here's the uncomfortable truth most men never hear. When a woman ignores you, it's rarely random, and it's almost never about the last thing you said. It's about power. Not power in a dramatic, villainous sense, but subtle power. Emotional gravity. Who moves first? Who reacts? Who needs? Let me ask you something. When her replies go cold, what happens inside you? Does your chest tighten? Do you replay old conversations? Do you feel the urge to explain yourself, to fix something that hasn't been named? Let that sink in. This is the moment that reveals everything. Because being ignored isn't the real problem. The real problem is what the silence pulls out of you. The Stoics understood this deeply. They believed life doesn't break us, our interpretations do. A woman pulling back is not pain. The story you tell yourself about it is where the suffering starts. Most men see distance and think, I'm losing her. A Stoic man sees distance and thinks, I'm learning something. Because withdrawal is information, and information is neutral until you poison it with fear. Here's something rarely said out loud. Sometimes a woman ignores you not because you did something wrong, but because she's checking something. Your emotional posture, your self-control, your sense of self. She may not even be fully aware she's doing it, but the test is real. Will you abandon yourself the moment attention disappears, or will you remain steady? Marcus Aurelius wrote that true power is ruling your inner world while chaos plays outside. This is where that lesson becomes real. When she pulls away, most men rush toward her emotionally. They chase clarity, they chase reassurance, they chase warmth. And in doing so, they reveal a dangerous truth. Their peace depends on her behavior. That dependency is what quietly kills attraction. Stoicism doesn't teach coldness, it teaches non-attachment. There's a difference. Coldness is numb. Non-attachment is grounded. One is fear wearing armor. The other is strength without noise. So what does a grounded man do when attention fades? Nothing dramatic, nothing reactive. He doesn't disappear to punish. He doesn't stay to plead. He simply stops leaning. Let that sink in. He notices the shift. He accepts it. And he redirects his energy inward because he understands a brutal and freeing thing. No one owes him consistency except himself. This is where most people get it wrong. They think silence is a weapon, but silence is only dangerous to someone who needs to be heard. For a man with direction, silence is just space. Space to think, space to recalibrate, space to observe reality without emotional distortion. Epictetus warned that wanting control over what isn't yours is the fastest path to suffering. Her attention is not yours. Her behavior is not yours. Her choices are not yours. Your response is. And that's where dignity lives. The moment you stop reacting is the moment the dynamic changes. Not because she suddenly panics, but because the emotional leverage disappears. Silence loses its power when it doesn't move you. There's a quiet confidence in not reaching for what's pulling away. It says, I am complete, even here. And whether she returns or not becomes secondary, because now the question isn't, why is she ignoring me? The real question becomes, why did her attention ever feel like oxygen? And that question is where real growth begins. The moment you stop reaching. There's a strange moment that happens when you don't react. It's quiet, almost unsettling. No double text, no explanation, no emotional display, just stillness. At first, that stillness feels unnatural. Your mind looks for movement. It wants to do something. Because most people confuse action with strength. But Stoicism teaches the opposite. Sometimes the strongest move is restraint. When you stop reaching for her attention, something important shifts. Inside you first. You begin to notice how much energy was flowing outward, how often your mood depended on her response time, how subtly you were negotiating your worth through effort. Let that sink in. This is not weakness, it's awareness, and awareness is the beginning of control. Here's a hard truth drawn from real life, not theory. People often pull away when they sense they are being leaned on emotionally, not because they are cruel, but because dependence feels heavy. Attraction thrives on freedom. Pressure suffocates it. The Stoics never begged the world to cooperate. They aligned themselves internally and let life respond as it wished. That's what this moment is asking of you. When she ignores you, you're being invited, not to chase, but to check your foundation. Ask yourself slowly, if she never replies again, who am I tomorrow morning? Am I still disciplined, still focused, still progressing, or was my momentum borrowed from her attention? This question cuts deep, because many men discover their sense of direction was attached to someone else's validation, and once that validation disappears, they feel hollow. Stoicism doesn't judge this, it simply exposes it. Seneca believed misfortune reveals character the way fire reveals gold. Silence is that fire. Now, here's something subtle most people miss. When you stop reacting, you don't just remove pressure from her, you remove pressure from yourself. No more guessing, no more emotional chasing, no more rehearsed messages that never get sent. You reclaim your nervous system. Your breath deepens, your thoughts slow down, your posture changes, even if no one sees it. This is inner sovereignty. And ironically, this calm is often felt by others before it's understood by you. Slowly. Distance does one of two things. It reveals disinterest or it reveals curiosity. Both are information, and neither requires your pursuit. If she truly didn't care, chasing wouldn't save it. It would only drain you. If she did feel something, your composure does something powerful. It mirrors her uncertainty back to her, not with games, not with strategy, but with reality. People feel safest around those who don't collapse when things become unclear. That's maturity. That's gravity. And whether she returns or not, you are no longer bargaining with your peace. This is where self-respect stops being a concept and starts becoming behavior. You go to the gym not to post, but to feel strength returning to your body. You work not to distract yourself, but to sharpen your focus. You sit alone at times without numbing the silence and realize you are still intact. Let that sink in. A man who can sit with uncertainty without reaching for reassurance is dangerous, not to others, but to his old limitations. Because now no one controls his emotional weather. Slowly. This is how attraction is inverted, not intentionally, but inevitably. When attention stops being your currency, you stop spending yourself cheaply, and something interesting happens. People begin to feel the space where you used to be, not because you vanished to provoke reaction, but because you stopped orbiting. Whether she notices is no longer the point. You have shifted from being reactive to being rooted, and that shift is irreversible. Because once you experience what it feels like to stand without needing a response, you never beg for one again. Slowly, reflective. Silence didn't weaken you, it clarified you. When absence finishes the lesson, there comes a point when the silence no longer feels heavy. It becomes neutral, not hopeful, not bitter, just quiet. This is where the lesson completes itself. By now, something has changed in you. Not dramatically, not loudly, but fundamentally. You are no longer waiting. That's the part few people talk about. Not the moment she comes back, not the moment she reaches out, but the moment you realize you don't need either outcome to be okay. Stoicism was never about control. It was about freedom from needing control. And nothing tests that like emotional distance from someone you once cared about. Here's the paradox of absence. It reveals truth without saying a word. If she returns, it's not because you chased, it's because something in her felt the loss of access. If she doesn't, you didn't lose her. You lost an attachment that was costing you peace. Either way, you are no longer confused. Confusion thrives on closeness without clarity. Distance clears the fog. At this stage, the Stoic man does something most people never do. He reframes the entire experience, not as rejection, not as failure, but as refinement. You didn't get ignored. You were invited to detach from what wasn't solid. You were shown where your emotional balance still depended on someone else's behavior. And now, that dependency is dissolving. This is growth that doesn't announce itself. There's no applause, no confirmation message, just a quieter inner world. You stop checking your phone with that familiar tension. You stop replaying conversations. You stop wondering what you should have done differently. Not because you stopped caring, but because you stopped clinging. Marcus Aurelius believed the soul becomes invincible when it stops asking life to be a certain way. This is that moment. If she reaches out now, you won't respond from hunger. You'll respond, or not, from choice. And choice is the highest position a human being can stand in. No resentment, no ego games, no performance, just alignment. And if she never returns, something even more powerful happens. You walk forward without carrying her shadow. You don't harden, you don't close off. You simply raise your standards for how access to you is earned. That's not punishment, that's maturity. The woman who ignored you was never the enemy. She was the mirror. She showed you where you were still reaching, still leaning, still negotiating your worth. And now, you no longer do. You are not colder, you are calmer. You are not distant, you are centered. And calm men don't chase clarity, they move with it. Because when you know who you are, silence stops being a threat. It becomes space. Space where weak attachments fall away. Space where self-respect settles in. Space where the next chapter finds you, not the other way around. And that's the quiet truth. What walks away was never meant to anchor you. What remains is you.